Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano rematch is set. I gotta be honest. I did not think this fight would actually happen after the first fight in July. But you know what? Let's discuss. What's going on, boxing and YouTube world? I am that dude named Dave, and I am back with another episode of the Boxing Now podcast. Before we get started here, let's do a little house clean like I always say here. I need that HBO special. That dude, what is that? It's the Help a Brother Out. Okay, so I need everybody to click on like, subscribe, and click on that bell notification below. Why? Let's be honest, I'm gonna keep saying it. I'm a struggle YouTube streamer here. You know what? The goal is to get 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. It's a big goal, it's a large goal, but you know what though? It's the Boxing Now podcast goal. Okay. So I'm gonna take a few seconds while you guys do that. Okay. So now we got it out the way here. We got the house cleaning here. Let's get on with today's discussion here. All right. Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano. Now, I have to be honest here when I said in the intro. I did not think this fight would happen after what happened in the first fight here. So let's go down to particulars here. Jermell Charlo is the twin brother of Jermell Charlo. Now, Jermell Charlo, of course, is the two-division middleweight titleist, and his twin brother Jermell's also he's still currently at 154 pounds as a junior middleweight. Now, he is currently the IBF, the WBA, and WBC champ with a record of 34, 1-1 with 18 KOs. His one loss, the Tony Thompson, which I actually thought that he actually won that fight. He came back in a rematch, he won. And of course, the draw that we see with Brian Castano. Brian Castano, his record, 17-0-2, is the current WBO junior middleweight titleist here now. One thing I will say before we get into the details of this fight here, I have to admit, I am really happy to see fighters consolidating and wanting to be the man and the champion in every division. We are seeing more undisputed champions or fighters who are attempting to be undisputed ever before. To be honest, when the early 2000s and in the 2010s, we saw fighters who were titleists who were happy to have one belt and just go ahead and defend that title and make $1 million paydays and didn't care about unifications or being the man. They were just milking mandatories out on HBO or Showtime and doing what they're doing here. And we never really had a true champion except for the guys who we know were the man. But what are we seeing right now? Let me just go down the line really fast. At 135 pounds, we have an undisputed champion in George Kambosos, and before that, Teofimo Lopez. Now, some people may say that he's not really undisputed because the WBC, but let's be honest here. The WBC, even though they are doing so much and everything is such a confusion, they have cleared everything up during their convention within the last month and said that George Kambosos is their champion. Devin Haney is a champion, but he is not the champion with the WBC. So technically, George Kambosos, even with this new designation they gave for Lemachenko and then it transferred to Lopez and to Kambosos, he has all the belts and he is undisputed at 135 pounds. He is the man. Okay, so let's move to 140. Josh Taylor, he cleaned out the division. He is the current, junior welterweight champion. Before him, we had Terrence Crawford a few years earlier become the first undisputed junior welterweight champion. Now, if we move to 147 here, we don't have that, but we do have, of course, the problem though is that the main fight that we want, will it happen, right, people? Because the fight we want to see is Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. And you know what, though? Keep that thought in mind because I'm talking about that one on the very next show after this one here. But what do we have here to begin the year in 2022? We have Errol Spence against Yorganis Ugas. Now, Spence has the IBF and the WBC belt. Ugas has the WBA belt. So the winner at the top of this year will have 3 belts with Terrence Crawford with the WBO waiting in the wings here. There's still a possibility, but the fact that we have a unification in place. 154, we'll finish that at the end of this pod here as we're discussing that now. 160, kind of in flux. I won't go into details with that. 168, we've already discussed that. I've had a few pods. If you go ahead and look at the tags here and look at the video, the history that I have here, Canelo is the man. He's undisputed at 168. He has cleaned out the division. He has every single belt. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. 175, Like I said, little confusion here, but we'll talk about that in another episode. I don't want to jump into that. Cruiserweight. Well, we had Alexander Usyk just recently become the second undisputed cruiserweight champion. The first, so we go back a long time ago, over 30 years, was Evander Holyfield. The only difference is that Holyfield was undisputed in the 3-belt era, and Usyk is undisputed in the 4-belt era. But regardless, there's only two at cruiserweight. And then if we fast forward to heavyweight here, Usyk did that transition, is almost undisputed right now. He threw a monkey wrench into a big heavyweight fight. Who knows? We'll get that this year. But Usyk is currently the WBA, the IBF, and the WBO heavyweight champion of the world, and he has a rematch set with Anthony Joshua early this year. We have Tyson Fury, who is the ring and WBC champion. Now, depending on those circumstances here, we could have an undisputed heavyweight champion if whoever's the winner of Joshua and Usyk, and then Fury handles business on one side. We technically possibly can have a fight at the end of the year, because we know between those three guys, if Anthony Joshua wins or Usyk wins or Tyson Fury wins, all three of those guys want to fight. The only problem was politics. Anthony Joshua had an automatic rematch clause. He has every right to exercise it. Do I think he's going to win? If he fights like his last fight, I say no. But you know what, though? We're going to talk about that in another pod here. I'll leave those details for later. But I wanted to break this down here to talk about the undisputed champions here and how we're going to go back here now to 154 here. The fact that I didn't think this was going to happen, because normally when you have an undisputed championship fight, the very, very minute the fight is over, one of the sanctioning bodies is going to order for a mandatory, because you have four belts. So each sanctioning body has their own rules: the WBA, WBC, IBF, and WBO. So they have their own rules. There's a timetable in place. Sometimes they follow the rules, sometimes they don't. And if they feel they want to order an immediate rematch, they're going to go ahead and do that. So the fact that we had an undisputed fight in July, that all four sanctioning bodies allowed for the fight to happen immediately right away, means that for the first time that we're seeing in the last couple of years in recent history, that the sanctioning bodies are understanding history. They do want to see an undisputed champion. And what is one thing that I want to explain to some of the fight fans is that these sanctioning bodies make more money the bigger their fighter is. So if you got an undisputed championship, they can negotiate those sanctioning fees, but that sanctioning fee fight is going to be worth more to someone they're going to do an internal fight. Let's play the averages here. They get a percentage of the purse. So if you had a mandatory fight where one guy's making 200,000 and the other guy's making 150,000, that percentage is going to be a lot less compared to you have a 3-belt holder in Charlo and Castano, and Charlo's been regularly making 7 figures every fight. And for a big fight like this, it's going to be on Showtime, that Castano could be in line for a 7-figure payday as well. So it's in the interest business-wise to do the rematch. So I'm great this is happening here, but let's hold this thought in mind here. Win, lose, or draw, a mandatory will come after this fight. So we need to have a winner in place so that we can have an undisputed champion. And then, of course, a mandatory, whether it be the WBA, IBF, WCWO, it's going to order for someone to come up right away. So we need a winner here. But let's get to a few more details here. When is the rematch happening? They're looking at March 12th or March 19th. Now, originally, they were saying February. Now, we know that there's been a lot of stuff going on logistics-wise. Planes has been canceled left and right because of the weather and because of the thing. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it the thing, because the YouTube algorithm doesn't like certain things. It's very technical, and if they hear certain things, it may not monetize it or may not push it out to the masses. So I'm going to call what's going on in the world since the last 2 years the thing. Okay. So we have the thing going on right now. So with this thing going on, it's slowing so many things up. But let's just be honest here. We have this fight. It's hopefully in February. Now we got March. I may attempt to go to this fight, guys. I'll let the cat out the bag. My birthday is March 13th on a Sunday this year. So if they do the fight March 12th in Houston, that'd be a nice little trip to go ahead and catch a championship fight. So, hey, would you guys want to take a trip with me to Houston or meet up and we'll do some boxing talk? Y'all let me know. But let's get a little bit more information here. Now, from the first fight, the scores were 114, 114, 112 Castano, then 117, 112 Jermell. The first two judges that scored it was more in line how the fight was. I scored it 8 rounds to 4 for Castano. I got to be honest. I had the volume off. I am a Charlo fan. I'm a fan of the twins in general. I was screaming at my TV. I was texting my partner Jorge saying, "What is Charlo doing?" And what did Castano do? He did what no fighter has done to Charlo before. He took away his jab. He took away his distance and his strength in his airspace. He was able to get inside and take away the strength that Charlo normally would like to do. The times when even Charlo had the opportunity to throw the jab, he was gun shy. He didn't want to pull the trigger. Castano had the perfect game plan where Charlo had a plan A, but he didn't have a plan B. Fortunately for Charlo, though, I just got to say this. Y'all may not like me. For Charlo fans, don't beat me up. But he got some home cooking. Let's be honest. I am a Charlo fan, and let's call it what it was. He got some home cooking. But he has a way to right this wrong here, okay? Because he wins this fight, he's undisputed, and he has the bigger name. There's going to be a lot more bigger fights for him because best believe, I know that they're all friends, but you can't tell me that when Errol Spence eventually moves to 154, that fight will be huge for the undisputed title if he can win this fight here. Or let's throw Bud Crawford in the mix if he goes up to 154 eventually and Jermell Charlo's there. He has all the belts that eventually you would have to go through him or Brian Castano because like I said, I picked Brian Castano win the first fight. I thought he won. And you know what though? Early prediction? Let me just say this here because I said all that right now. Unless there's a different game plan and Charlo has a plan B and plan C, I am saying that Brian Castano will win this fight officially. Unless it's taken from him because they're in Houston. He will be the undisputed champion if he fights the same game plan and Charlo does not make any changes. Now, I know I'm being simple on that, but rewatch the fight again. Turn the volume off. Look at the times when Charlo did not pull the trigger. The times that he was forced against the ropes when he didn't have to go against the ropes. The lateral movement and the footwork and the spacing that Castano did was masterful in this fight. He just did not get the decision. But you know what, though? He has a chance to right that wrong now. The judges may have took it from him, but you know what, though? He had a second opportunity here. So that is my early prediction here. Brian Castano by early prediction by decision. Won't be a knockout, won't be a stoppage, because both guys are tough as nails and built for 12-round fights. This is the pinnacle and this is the peak for their careers here. So I do not see a stoppage going on right now. But for all the credit on both sides, political there to get this fight done, to get an undisputed champion. And then once we have that occur, then of course, then we'll have mandatories in place, but then we'll see who that champion will fight next, or if he goes to the politics and got to let some belts go away. But that is my update here. March 12th, March 19th in Houston for the Undisputed Junior Middleweight Championship Award at 154 pounds. Jermell Charlo against Brian Castano. What do you guys think, Boxing Now podcast fans? Do you think that Jermell Charlo will right his wrong here for his bad performance and get the W? Or does Brian Castano get the win that he deserves here? Until next time.